Greetings, welcome everybody to Roundtable 7, which is a combination of people working across diverse subjects. And live, okay. So greetings, welcome everybody to Roundtable 7, which is a combination of people working across diverse subjects. And live, okay. So greetings.
Kate, I just muted you for a moment. When you figure everything out, I think you're going to be all good. Just go ahead and mute your page. Thank you. You can go ahead and unmute whenever you're ready.
Okay, and what about my continually repeating what I started out by?
I just muted you for a moment. When you figure everything out. So go ahead. Your page. So Kate, when you're ready, can you go ahead and drag that little slider to the right, the little blue bars on the bottom of the Vimeo player. Thank you. I wonder if somebody else could actually get us started real quick. Maybe we can just go around and start introductions while Kate's figuring that out.
Sure, I can hop in. Thanks, Kate, for getting us started. I think this roundtable will be dedicated to agriculture, and I'm going to let Kate take it away once she gets the live stream muted. But yeah, we're really happy to be here with you all, and thanks for tuning in. We're excited to share with you. I think this roundtable will be dedicated to agriculture. And
thank you. It's the same problem.
Once she gets the live stream.
Shall we just pretend that that isn't there and keep going?
So let's go around for the introductions real quick. I'll pull you aside, Kate.
Okay. Could we have introductions starting with Hillary and just say who you are, where you're at, and what your research is on? Shall we just pretend that that isn't there?
Yes, sure. So my name is Hillary Green, and I am at the University of California, Davis. I'm currently a fourth-year PhD candidate, and I am working on avocado oil. We are understanding what makes avocado oil unique and trying to develop standards for this product because they don't currently exist. So, hello.
How about you, Nicholas?
We're understanding what makes avocado oil unique.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Carvolius, and I'm a PhD candidate at UC Berkeley. I actually work in the institute that our keynote speaker founded, Dr. Jennifer Doudna. So I'm at the Innovative Genomics Institute, where I use CRISPR-Cas9 and classic genetics to understand rice stomatal developmental genetics and physiology. We hope to develop a crop that can be more water use efficient, more photosynthetically advanced in anticipation of climate change.
Kaylin, how about you?
All right. Hi, I'm Kaylin Dieterich. I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate in the Soils and Biogeochemistry graduate group. I'm actually in Kate's lab, and I am currently studying basically the above ground productivity and the soil ecosystem services of annual and perennial grains, more specifically the perennial grain known as Kernza, which was developed at the Land Institute and was recently provided to growers in like the last 5 years, but we don't have any data on it and how it performs in the state of California. So that's what my PhD research is focused on.
Richard.
Hey everyone, I'm Richard Gruwell. I'm a fifth-year PhD candidate at Stanford in the Department of Biology. I do most of my research at Stanford's Marine Station, which is a satellite campus in Monterey. So I study primarily wildlife diseases, and I try to integrate genetics and epidemiology to get a better handle on what's going on. One of the things that is becoming really prominent right now and relates to Jennifer and Nicholas's work is CRISPR-Cas9 and its involvement in fighting disease. So one of the large projects that I've worked on recently has been modeling the use of CRISPR-Cas9 mediated gene drive in targeting immunity in aquatic snails that are part of the transmission cycle of schistosomiasis. So by elevating immunity, we hope that we're able to reduce transmission of this disease.
Amelia.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I am a sixth-year PhD student in the animal behavior program over here at Davis as well. So it's nice like seeing other Davis students, even if it's just virtually. And in addition to the social stuff that I talked about in the main program, most of my research focuses on how experience, with specific evidence on how stressful experiences more generally affect later behavior and the ability of animals to respond to environmental change. So slightly less agricultural, but my fish are actually quite important for rice production because when we flood rice fields, the state of California introduces my fish to rice fields to control mosquitoes. So agricultural tie-in.
That's awesome.
The chat for me, and I think we'll be good. All right, great. Okay, so let's get started. We've had our own technical difficulty here, but how has it been doing your research this year? Have there been, I mean, I can't imagine there have not been challenges. Would anyone like to share like what in particular has maybe gotten in your way, maybe sent you on kind of a new path? Shall we start with Hillary, you?
Sure. Well, I have to say that it's definitely been challenging, as I'm sure it's been for all of us. Many researchers go through different phases. So there's often like the lab work phase, and then you'll go through maybe a data analysis phase and a writing phase. And it just so happened when the pandemic started, I had just published a paper and had finished all of my data analysis and writing and was ready to go back into the lab. And so that was particularly challenging because I didn't actually have a lot to do that wasn't lab work. But, you know, I instead got a head start on my dissertation and I did some literature reviews and until I was finally allowed to be back in lab. And I can't remember when I was at lab back, but somewhere around summer of last year. And we are actually very fortunate that not only am I in agriculture, so I'm considered an essential worker, we also have a lot of different lab rooms and lab spaces. So I have actually been able to work at now what is considered normal capacity because we just have a lot of space and very few people. And so I've been
That worked out.
Very thankful for that. And it's actually worked out for me.
Great.
So, yeah.
Nicholas, how about you?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Kate. I just want to start by saying how grateful I am to the university and for being able to continue to support us during this crisis. And my heart goes out to those folks who have lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic. I feel a lot of gratitude for the capacity to be able to continue being employed. And so I'm thinking of all those folks and I have a lot of gratitude for this work and the way that it creates a lot of stability in my life. It's been challenging, of course, but I actually feel very hopeful about where we're headed. And I'm really, again, grateful to have rice plants that grow despite the pandemic and to have biological organisms to take care of that, you know, really keep you grounded and help remind you that despite the state of the world and humanity, there's something to study and there's still exciting opportunities and future ahead of us. So to put a positive twist on things, I have a lot of gratitude.
Yeah, that's super interesting, having someone to take care of. Yeah, that's really interesting. Kaylin, how about you?
Also echoing Nicholas's statement about gratitude, I've had a lot of time to reflect upon that this past year. And in terms of how it's affected my work, I was actually in the last year of my field season of my PhD. And so got pretty creative there on how to get stuff out of the field and weighed and stored. And yeah, just implementing super safe, socially distant practices. And the biggest thing is just adjusting my timelines because of access to the lab or capacity of the lab, and really kind of shifting my focus onto data analysis. So.
Yep. Great. Richard, how about you?
Yeah, also, echoing gratefulness for being supported during this time. I think for me, I have been fortunate in that I do a combination of theoretical and empirical work. And so, when the empirical work is harder to access, I can focus on my theoretical work. So I did that particularly in the beginning of the pandemic. I did go back into the lab for a couple months at the end of 2020. I study a parasite in sea otters, and so I had to do a lot of genetic work, but I was able to get that taken care of. Luckily, we had great testing capacity on Stanford's campus, and so we were able to do that safely, which I'm very thankful for.
That made such a big difference. I mean, I think we all are fortunate. I think we've all been on campuses that had a lot of capability. How about you, Amelia?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it wouldn't have affected me a ton because my fish were in the lab and still needed someone to take care of them. So I never had, I was always coming to campus because they still need being fed and I was their primary caretaker. So in some ways, I would have been able to continue my research, but unfortunately, I had a bunch of planned projects that required some predators that I was unable to get into the lab because of the places that I get them, restrictions. So I switched some of the questions that I was looking at, but I also switched to doing more analysis that I wouldn't have done without the sort of more time available. And part of the reason I was able to make that switch was actually because of ARCS, that I used that funding, and because the funding is so flexible, in order to sort of switch what I was going to do and get the resources that I needed for the additional analyses. So that was quite nice to have. But also just on a conceptual level, I think most of my research looks at how animals deal with change. And I spend a lot of time thinking about how my past experiences have enabled me and my peers to deal either better or worse with the stress that comes with a global pandemic. And actually, I talk about this in my poster. During my third year of my PhD, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm since all totally better. And I'd gotten the all clear like less than a month before we went into lockdown. And so my immune system had just bounced back, but I had spent essentially 2 years being told that I didn't have an immune system and everything was scary, so I needed to be really careful. So when the pandemic started, I was like, yep, I've got that side of things figured out. And those past experiences had shaped who I was and how I would deal with a very different type of stressor based off of those experiences. So I spent a lot of time with my research just thinking about what it meant for us as a people, and me particularly, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to write like a conceptual paper, like some new paradigm. I mean, because that is so, what an interesting, connection there. And the fact that you work on that, like multiple stressors, it's super interesting. Yeah, have you found that like how the writing is going? And I don't know how many of you are in writing mode, and in a way you would think that the pandemic creates an opportunity where there's more space for that, but it also may create other challenges around writing that is, when you're more in isolation. I don't know, any of you have been having experience with that?
I would love to chime in. So it's been really interesting. I feel that there's a lot of pressure, or there's a culture in the sciences to put your head down at the bench and get moving. And having the pandemic that pushed pause on our lives necessitated a lot of thinking, kind of like Amelia was saying, and reflecting. And so I found that I really wanted to contextualize the work that I was doing in understanding what is the capacity of gene editing to be influential for climate change in agriculture. So I actually had a really exciting opportunity during the pandemic to review the field with a team of other researchers. And I was really grateful for the ways that I had more time and mental capacity to be able to focus my thinking there and contextualize some of my work. So it was an exciting opportunity to take a pause from the bench and really start thinking more broadly.
That's cool. Have any others had sort of unexpected like opportunities like that this brought on?
During the beginning of the pandemic, I spent the first few months working on COVID, which was fun and interesting.
Wow.
But definitely, you know, provided a little bit of space to do some writing there. And I feel like, yeah, I had the fortunate moment in time where I was doing lab work and I couldn't anymore. So I refocused my efforts, and that's what I did.
So directly working on the opportunity that COVID provided you.
Yeah.
By working on COVID. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I'll chime in quickly too. I agree with what Nicholas was saying. I actually got the opportunity to do something similar and really had to refocus. I did, you know, some literature reviews, and I ended up redesigning some projects that I'm doing now. And I actually was able to design them in such a way that I'm answering some really big research questions that are really important for my field. And I don't think I would have been able to design the projects and really have gotten to know this work and what I'm doing as well without the pandemic. And I'm actually really excited now because I'm really excited about the work that I'm doing now. And I don't know if that would have happened and if I could have done what I'm doing without that opportunity. So there's definitely some good there.
Like a refreshing. That's interesting, and the opportunity to reflect. How about Kaylin and Kaylin?
Yeah, so the thing that comes to mind for me is that I've always found like having small writing groups to be a really effective way for me to set goals and meet those goals in writing. So when isolation came, that was a little concerning. However, I did take part in a program that was sponsored by the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity, which was like an online writing boot camp where you kind of came together as a collective and a support group and did daily writing exercises. And that was really, really helpful. So just knowing that there are also virtual ways that you can create community around writing and meet your goals has been really inspiring.
You wonder if you would have been as attracted to that if you were like living your normal life and in the lab and or in the field, like for you.
Yep.
As well.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. And that's an awesome website. If those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's an amazing set of resources. It says faculty, but it's equally for grad students. I can put
the link in the chat.
That'd be great. Yeah. Amelia, how about you?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been some benefits. I feel like having fewer meetings and just like bunches of uninterrupted time has been good for writing. But also I think like I am so inspired by talking to people in ways that like are less planned. Like I think, you know, like going to a happy hour and having a beer and something comes up and you're talking to someone whose field is slightly different than yours and you think about something differently. I think like I miss that aspect of academia a ton. And I have tried to get things to fill it. And there've been little things that have helped, but I think it's not perfect for sure. There's things that it's not just time, I think, that makes a good paper. There are some other sort of special sauce ingredients that I'm working on replacing. But I'm graduating in a month and a half, hopefully. So there's been lots of writing with or without those special sauce ingredients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, congratulations. That's great. Yeah, I wonder, like this whole thing of creating community. I work internationally a bit, and it's like I found that having to do everything remotely has really opened more up the possibility of engaging with one another when you're not in the same place. So the good side of that, right? Not the loss side of it, you know, where you can't be with your colleagues anymore. And definitely I've seen it with conferences too. I mean, going and jumping in on somebody's lab meeting in Minnesota yeah, I mean, it's just, and access, much more access to conferences. Is that something that you have been taking advantage of, or has that been, yeah, beneficial?
I can say something really quickly about that, especially about the international aspect, which is I have a postdoc lined up for starting this summer, which is why I'm going to graduate. but it's in Scotland. And it's been great because I've been able to start going to lab meetings. I'm working on a variety of papers. I very much feel like I'm already a member of the lab, despite the fact that I'm still finishing up here. And that definitely would not have happened in a non-COVID time because they would have been having live lab meetings.
Amazing.
And so that interaction has really been great, for sure.
I think we've learned a lot from having to like deal with this, and I hope that we keep you know, a lot of those good aspects of it. That's amazing. Yeah. Others?
Yeah, I can only imagine from an international aspect. I feel like even close to home, just access to things that are offered through the university that I otherwise, because of my you know, where I was physically on campus or had commitments to off campus, that I was unable to attend a lot of really helpful seminars and workshops that are offered to us as graduate students. And now that these are offered remotely, I feel like I've just been able to engage with them in a frequency and a level that I wasn't able to before. And then also, Kate, like you talked about with conferences and collaboration and joining in on people's teams to have conversations. It just wouldn't have otherwise been possible without this virtual reality that we're living in. So it's very cool.
Oh. Anyone else have thoughts on that?
One of the interesting things in my experience has been the transition from not being able to connect very well with Stanford's main campus to being able to connect too well with Stanford's main campus, because I'm at the Marine Station for most of my PhD. And it's been a continuous battle to have offerings on main campus done through Zoom because it's more of an issue for us than it is for them. And now it's just there's endless opportunities to engage through the virtual setting that you have to decide which to say yes and no to. And I think, you know, learning how to manage your time appropriately has been one interesting challenge in and of itself, but very thankful for the opportunities. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Does anyone see any questions coming in to that roundtable place? The echo chamber?
I actually just put one in our chat on Zoom.
Okay, okay, well, Hillary, would you like to answer that? How has the ARCS Award helped you in the last year? Maybe we can just quickly go around the table. I think someone already mentioned a little bit about it.
Sure, it's allowed me to continue working, which I've been really thankful for, because some of the projects that I thought I was going to do didn't end up working out, and we lost funding for because of the pandemic. So the ARCS Award actually allowed me to have time to, you know, design new projects and get a new plan in place so that I could actually continue doing research. So I was very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, great. How about you, Richard?
Yeah, likewise, as Hillary said, you know, providing the stability of and independence through this fellowship to pursue the projects that I was interested in was crucial, because, you know, otherwise it would have meant spending more time securing other grants, or, you know, working on projects that already existed and weren't necessarily my own invention. And I think that is one of the real benefits of having you know, ARCS involved in funding this year, and it's been crucial in, you know, making the progress that I've made in ending my PhD.
Yeah, the other one is TAing, right? TAing is another one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amelia, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that I used my ARCS funding to buy the software that I needed to do my analysis, to do this different analysis that I wasn't going to get to do. So it let me seamlessly, like there was no like getting permission. It was my money and I could do what I wanted with it. And that was really nice. I also think, sort of thinking it at a bigger picture, one of the things I really value about the ARCS is that out of out of other grants that I've gotten, the ARC feels really like we are learning to manage it and make the decisions about how to spend it to optimize our research. And that has been helpful for me thinking about someday having my own lab and making these decisions, that I really respect that the ARCs treats us as scholars who can make these decisions. And I think being asked to do that is really helpful for me.
Yeah, what a great, yeah, great comment. Nicholas.
What continues to ring true about the ARCS fellowship is that it endows a great sense of autonomy. And so I'm really grateful to have received the ARCS right at the beginning of my PhD as I was forming my big research questions, because I was able to think very independently about what it is that I wanted to pursue in the course of my PhD, and never was really needing to subscribe to whatever outside force or PI wanted me to do. And so I'm really grateful for the ways that ARCS encouraged me to be an autonomous thinker. And I think that's going to be something that I carry with me for the rest of my life as a scholar.
Yeah, what a great thing. That's awesome. Kaylin, how about you?
Yeah, so definitely the idea of autonomy and independence, and having the ability to manage the funds is huge. And it gave me kind of the space and the bandwidth to take some time off of teaching, which I love, but put a lot of mental energy into preparing 3 years worth of data collection and starting in on in-depth analysis of that was pivotal, especially in the time that I am in my PhD. And also creating a community in the middle of isolation was great, and very much appreciated, because they go above and beyond to really make it a cohesive community, which I really appreciate.
That's great. So we are in the last few minutes, and I'd like to do a round, go around you again with the really big question. So let's sort of go big scale here. And what do you think is, like, in your particular area, what is the big question in your field over in the next 10 years? And we can start with, let's start with Nicholas. Mix you up a little bit. And I guess be fairly short so you all can say it, but.
That's a big question, Kate, but I'll do my best. So we're all in the agricultural space. I think we're all tackling different aspects of it. And I think we can all vouch for the technology or the approaches that we're taking as a mechanism to addressing climate change or the impending global food crisis. But I think more than anything, we need to be thinking about how we as scientists and as broader members of a global community can come into community with each other to solve these issues. So it's hard to define a singular issue that is required, but the biggest issue, in my opinion, or the biggest undertaking will be centralizing and moving as a collective. And so each one of us will play a role in doing that.
Yeah, great. Hillary.
So I'm going to go a little bit more specific towards my field, because this is something that I've actually been able to do this last year. One of the big questions for avocado oils, and actually oils in general, is understanding how different natural variables like, rainfall, sunlight, all of those things like impact their chemical composition. And that's kind of like the big question, is understanding how all of those factors like play together. And that is something that I'm actually working on a project that's addressing some of those things right now, which I'm really excited about. So
well poised. Yeah. Richard.
So I think, now more than ever, we realize the impact of, zoonotic transmission to humans. But something we fail to consider most of the time is that wildlife suffer greater impacts of disease transmission to them through our activities and from our own disease being transmitted to them. And it has resulted in widespread wildlife decline and vulnerability. And so I think, moving forward, we need to figure out how to leverage our existing efforts in new technology to reduce not only human disease, but also wildlife disease, because it is one of the major causes of dramatic declines in their populations.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Amelia.
Yeah, I think the behavior is becoming much more integrative. So it's interested in thinking about not just how an animal behaves, but why it behaves that way and what effects that behavior has. So beginning to think more about integrations with genes and beginning to think sort of stepping in the opposite direction of thinking about how does behavior affect the way that an ecosystem functions. So I actually, for my postdoc, I'm moving into looking at behavior and physiology, because I think that really understanding an integrative approach to sort of whole animal in an ecosystem is where the field is moving.
Oh, fascinating. And Kaylin.
This is hard. So there's three things that stand out specifically within kind of the soil science sphere that I'm in. But number one, I'm thinking and kind of trying to more refine our idea around soil health and coming up with more regional specific indicators of soil health versus at a national or international level. Understanding at a deeper level how soil carbon sequestration can or cannot be brought into the kind of conversation of global climate change and mitigation, and as well as sustainable agriculture and what that's going to look like going forward, not only in terms of food security, but ecosystem conservation.
And I see a common theme of like One Health here, you know, because soil is another living form that's part of it. And, you know, we spend a lot of time trying to get that recognized, that soil's alive as well. But that's like a common theme among us. And well, anyway, you are a fascinating group of scholars. Really enjoyed talking with you. Sorry for the technical difficulty at the beginning. And but I think that I imagine that this is we're at the close now. But thank you very much. I think it's just amazing that you're all being funded by ARCS and going to do great things with that funding. You're already so insightful and wise. So yeah, pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you, Kate.
facilitating.
Thank
Yep.
you.